Government budget constraints. Hello friends, today we will introduce the concept of constraints of the government budget. Whenever we talk about the government budget, we start from the case of balanced budget in which revenues equal expenditures. But the budget will not remain in balanced condition always due to the fact that government may deliberately create a deficit by decreasing taxes or increasing expenditure. So, in this session, we will discuss about the deficits, debt, spending and taxes, as these four conditions are the constraints of the government budget. Friends, let's begin with deficits and debts. First, we will discuss about the definitions of deficits and debts in a layman's language. Debt is a stock concept used to show what the government owes because of the past deficits, while deficit is a flow concept used to show the extent of government borrowings during a given year. This budget deficit can be written in arithmetic form. Deficits is equal to R B T minus 1 plus G T minus T T. This is equation 1. In this equation, B T minus 1 expresses government debt at the end of the year T minus 1. R is the real interest rate, which is assumed constant here, and hence RB T minus 1 is equal to the real interest payments on the government debt in year T. GT here represents government spending on goods and services during year T. TT shows net tax, which is taxes paid minus transfer payments during year T. Hence, from the above discussion, we can now state that budget deficit is equal to spending, which includes interest payments on debt, minus taxes net of transfers. Equation 1 has several characteristics. By this equation, we measure interest payment as real interest payment, that is, the product of the nominal interest rate and the existing debts, because the official measures of the deficit use actual interest payments, which is incorrect and can seriously be misleading. Official measure of the deficit is equal to IB plus G minus T. In this equation, IB shows the nominal actual interest payment, G shows spending on goods and services, T shows taxes minus transfer payments. This equation of official measure shows correct measure of the cash flow position of government, but it is not an accurate measure to show the changes in real debt, that is, the change in how much the government owes expressed in terms of goods. If it is positive, then it means government is spending more than it is receiving and hence must issue new debt. And if the case is reverse, that is negative, then it means government buys back previously issued debt. This can be shown by the help of taking real interest payment, and this method of measuring deficit is sometimes called as inflation adjusted deficit. Another characteristic of this equation is that G shows the spending on goods and services excluding transfer payments. Instead, it is subtracted from T. Now, the government budget constraint can be stated simply as the change is government debt during year T is equal to the deficit during year T. BT minus 1 is equal to deficit T. This is our equation 2. The above equation shows that if the government runs a deficit, then government debt increases, and if government runs a surplus, government debt decreases. Now, using equation 1 and 2, we can rewrite the government budget constraint as BT minus BT minus 1 is equal to R B T minus 1 plus GT minus TT. This is our equation 3. This equation shows that budget constraint links the changes in the government debt to the initial level of debt and to current government spending and taxes. For the sake of convenience, we can decompose the deficit into interest payments on the debt, that is RBT minus 1. Second, primary deficit, that is GT minus TT, which is the difference of spending and taxes. Now we can rewrite the equation 3 as BT minus BT minus 1, which would be equal to bracket RBT minus 1 bracket closed plus bracket GT minus TT bracket closed. In the equation, BT minus BT minus 1 shows change in the debt. RBT minus 1 shows the interest payments, and GT minus TT shows primary deficit. Reorganizing the equation, we get BT, which is equal to bracket 1 plus R bracket closed into BT minus 1 plus bracket GT minus TT bracket closed. This is our equation number 4. This equation shows that the debt at the end of year T is equal to bracket 1 plus R bracket closed times the debt at the year T minus 1 plus the primary deficit during the year T. We will now look at the implications. Current versus future taxes. To see the implications, we will first consider 1 year decrease in taxes for the path of debt and future taxes. We suppose that there is a situation until year 1 when the government budget is balanced and hence initial debt is equal to 0. Now we will discuss with the help of an example where during year 1 government decreases taxes by $1 billion for year 1. Hence, at the end of year 1, the debt is B1, which is equal to 1, B1 is equal to 1. Now, full repayment in year 2 is, suppose government decides to repay fully the debt during year 2. The budget constraint for year 2 is given by the equation B2 is equal to bracket 1 plus R bracket into B1 plus bracket G2 minus T2 bracket closed. Now, if the government repays the debt fully by year 2, then at the end of year 2, the debt is equal to 0, that is B2 is equal to 0. Replacing B1 by 1 and B2 by 0 gives a new equation, that is T2 minus G2 is equal to bracket 1 plus R bracket into 1, which is just equal to 1 plus R. The government must run a primary surplus equal to R plus 1 to repay the debt fully during the year 2. Government can do this in any of the two ways: a decrease in spending or an increase in taxes. Here it is assumed that the adjustment will be through taxes and hence the path of spending is unaffected. For this, the decrease in taxes by 1 during year 1 must be offset by an increase in taxes by 1 plus R during year 2. Full repayment in year 2, T1 decreases by 1, T2 increases by 1 plus R. The path of taxes and debt corresponding to this case is given in the figure. Now we will start with full repayment in year T. Now suppose that the government decides to wait till year T to repay the debt. The primary deficit is 0 during the year 2. Hence, the debt at the end of the year 2 is B2 is equal to 1 plus R into B1 plus 0, which is equal to 1 plus R whole into 1, which is equal to just 1 plus R. At the end of year 3, the debt is B3, which is equal to 1 plus R into B2 plus 0, which is further equal to 1 plus R into 1 plus R into 1, which is just equal to 1 plus R whole square. Debt grows at a rate equal to the interest rate, as long as the government keeps a primary deficit equal to 0, and hence the debt at the end of year T minus 1 is given by B T minus 1, which is equal to 1 plus R whole raised to the power of T minus 2. This can be seen as equation 5. The budget constraint for the year T, the year in which the government decides to repay the debt, is equal to BT, which is equal to 1 plus R whole into B T minus 1 plus bracket GT minus TT bracket closed. If debt is fully repaid during the year T, then BT, that is debt at the end of year T, is 0. Replacing BT by 0 and BT minus 1 by its expressions from equation 5 gives us 0, which is equal to 1 plus R into 1 plus R raised to power T minus 2 plus GT minus TT. Reorganizing the equation, we get TT minus GT, which is equal to 1 plus R whole raised to power T minus 1. The equation shows that the government must run a primary surplus equal to 1 plus R raised to power T minus 1 during the year T to repay the debt. The path of taxes and debt, where debt is repaid in 5 years, is given in figure. With the above examples, we can conclude a decrease in taxes must eventually be offset by an increase in taxes in future if government spending is unchanged. Secondly, the longer the government waits to increase taxes, or the higher the real interest rate is, the higher the eventual increase in taxes must be. We will now look at debt stabilization in year T. Debt stabilization means changing taxes or spending in such a way that debt remains constant from then on. Now we will see what will be the conditions if the government only stabilizes the debt. Suppose government decides to stabilize the debt from the year 2, which means the debt at the end of year 2 and thereafter remains at the same level as it was at the end of year 1. The budget constraint equation may then look like B2 is equal to 1 plus R whole into B1 plus G2 minus T2, which is our equation 6. With the assumption that debt is stabilized in the year 2, we get our equation number 7, which is B2 is equal to B1, which is nothing but equal to 1. Replacing equation 7 in 6, now we get 1 plus R plus G2 minus T2 is equal to 1. Reorganizing the equation, we get T2 minus G2, which is equal to 1 plus R minus 1, which is nothing but equal to R. The path of taxes and debt is shown in the figure. The above example yields second set of conclusions, which are: number 1, the legacy of the past deficits is higher government debt. Secondly, the government must eliminate the deficit to stabilize the debts. We will now look at the evolution of debt to GDP ratio. In the above section, we have focused on the evolution of the level of debt, but to focus on the ratio of debt to output is more sensible, because in any economy, output grows over time. To see the change, we will take the equation 4, that is Bt, which is equal to 1 plus R whole into Bt minus 1 plus Gt minus Tt, which will give the evolution of the debt to GDP ratio. First, we will divide both sides of equation by real output, which is Yt. So, our equation becomes Bt divided by Yt, which is further equal to 1 plus R whole into Bt minus 1 divided by Yt plus Gt minus Tt whole divided by Yt. Now, multiply the numerator and the denominator by Yt minus 1, which is equal to Bt divided by Yt equal to 1 plus R into Yt minus 1 divided by Yt into Bt minus 1 divided by Yt plus Gt minus Tt whole divided by Yt. In the above equation, all terms are now in terms of ratio to output Y. To simplify this equation, we will assume that output growth is constant and denote the growth rate of output by G. So, Yt minus 1 divided by Yt can be written as 1 divided by 1 plus G. By the use of approximation, we get 1 plus R whole divided by 1 plus G is equal to 1 plus R minus G. By the help of the above two assumptions, we can write the above equation as Bt divided by Yt, which is equal to 1 plus R minus G into Bt minus 1 whole divided by Yt plus Gt minus Tt whole divided by Yt. Reorganizing the equation, we get Bt divided by Yt minus Bt minus 1 divided by Yt minus 1, which is equal to R minus G whole into Bt minus 1 whole divided by Yt plus Gt minus Tt divided by Yt, which gives us our equation 8. Equation 8 gives us the following information. The left side of the equation shows the change in the debt ratio over time, which is equal to the sum of the two terms. The first term being the difference between the real interest rate and the growth rate multiplied by the initial debt ratio. The second term is the ratio of the primary deficits to GDP. Friends, let us conclude whatever we have learned in today's session. When we compare the equation 8, that is Bt divided by Yt minus Bt minus 1 divided by Yt minus 1, which is equal to R minus G into Bt minus 1 divided by Yt plus Gt minus Tt divided by Yt, which shows the evolution of the ratio of debt to GDP, with the equation 3, that is Bt minus Bt minus 1, which is equal to R into Bt minus 1 plus Gt minus Tt, which shows the evolution of the level of debt. The difference is the presence of R minus G in equation 8. This difference shows the situation where primary deficit is 0. Debt will then increase at a rate equal to the real interest rate, which is R. But if GDP is growing as well, the ratio of debt to GDP will grow more slowly. It will grow at a rate equal to the real interest rate minus the growth rate of output, which is R minus G. Thank you, friends.